Everyone has a favorite hiding spot from their childhood. That cramped space behind the water heater, the dusty corner of the attic, the one branch on the old oak tree no one else could reach. A good spot was a badge of honor. It meant you were clever, invisible. You could sit in the quiet darkness, listening to the muffled calls of the seeker, your heart thumping with a thrilling, joyful fear. That's the fear you're supposed to feel, a safe fear. But the game I played as a kid, the fear wasn't safe. And my favorite hiding spot didn't just keep me from being found, it kept me from being taken. Our neighborhood was one of those perfect 90s suburban cul-de-sacs, where all the kids ran in a pack from sunrise to sunset. There were 5 of us, me, my best friend Chloe, the rough and tumbled brothers Mark and David, and Sam. Sam was the youngest, a quiet, sweet kid who just wanted to be included. Our favorite game, the one that defined our summers, was cellar hide and seek. At the edge of the woods that bordered our neighborhood was a crumbling stone foundation of a house that had burned down 100 years ago. All that was left was the root cellar, a dark stone-lined pit in the ground with a heavy, slanted wooden door. It was our forbidden playground. The game had a special rule. We'd all stand at the cellar door and chant a stupid rhyme we made up. 10, 9, 8 at the cellar's gate. 5, 4, 3, don't let it see. 1, none, what's done is done, ready or not, here I come. Then the seeker would count to 100 while the rest of us scattered. The cellar was the ultimate risk-reward. It was the best hiding spot, full of dark, terrifying corners. But if you were found in there, you were the seeker for the next 3 rounds. The last time we ever played, it was my turn to be it. I chanted the rhyme, closed my eyes, and counted. I remember the smell of the damp earth and the chorus of crickets as I counted. When I reached 100, I yelled, "Ready or not, here I come," and started my search. I found Mark behind the old well. I found Chloe up in her treehouse. I found David hiding under a thicket of overgrown rose bushes. But I couldn't find Sam. We all searched for him. We called his name until our throats were raw. We checked the cellar a dozen times. He was just gone. The police came. Search parties scoured the woods. They never found a trace. It was the tragedy that broke our neighborhood, the event that ended our childhood. Sam's family moved away a year later. Our pack of 5 was shattered forever. I carried a deep, buried guilt for years. I was the seeker. I was the one who was supposed to find him. 20 years passed. I moved away, went to college, built a life. But that memory was always there, a dark, locked room in my mind. A few months ago, my dad passed away, and I had to go back to my childhood home to help clear it out. The neighborhood had changed, but the woods and the old foundation were still there. One afternoon, drawn by a morbid nostalgia, I walked to the edge of the trees. The cellar door was still there, now almost completely consumed by ivy. On a wave of pure, irrational impulse, I heaved the heavy wooden door open. The familiar smell of damp earth and decay washed over me. I turned on my phone's flashlight and descended the crumbling stone steps. The cellar was just as I remembered it, empty except for dirt and mold. I was about to leave when my light caught something in the far corner. It was a small, faded red plastic toy soldier, Sam's favorite. He carried it everywhere. My heart ached. This must have been his last hiding spot. I knelt down to pick it up, and that's when I saw the carvings on the stone wall behind it. They were crude, childish scratches, dozens of stick figures. 4 of them were running away from a 5th one, a smaller stick figure, who was standing by a large, angry-looking scribble. And then I saw the new carvings. Below the old ones were names: Mark, David, Chloe, and my name. And under my name was a single, freshly scratched word: safe. And just like that, the locked room in my mind burst open. The full, terrifying memory of that night came flooding back, a memory my child's brain had buried to protect itself. I hadn't been the seeker. Sam had. I remember standing at the cellar door, chanting the rhyme. I remember Sam, his face full of the strange, serious determination, closing his eyes to count. I remember my favorite hiding spot, a tiny, cramped alcove inside the cellar, hidden behind a loose stone. I remember huddling in the absolute darkness, listening. I heard the other kids being found, their laughing shouts echoing from outside. I waited, and I waited. The silence stretched on. And then I heard a new sound, a slow, scraping sound, coming from deeper inside the cellar, from the walls themselves. I heard Sam's voice, a small, terrified whisper from just outside my alcove. "Ready or not," he said, "here I come." But he wasn't talking to me. Then I heard another voice. It wasn't human. It was a dry, rustling, impossibly deep whisper that seemed to come from the very stones around me. "Found you," it said. I heard Sam let out a single choked gasp, then a wet, tearing sound, followed by an absolute, final silence. I stayed in that alcove all night, paralyzed by a terror so profound it erased itself from my memory. The other kids, thinking the game was over, had gone home. They never knew I was in there. The thing that had taken Sam, it never knew I was in there either. I stumbled out of the cellar now, 20 years later, the toy soldier clutched in my hand. The carvings, the whispers, the memory, it all made a horrifying kind of sense. The game wasn't about us. The rhyme wasn't a countdown. It was an invocation. And the seeker wasn't one of us. It was the thing that lived in the cellar. I didn't win that night because I was a good hider. I was just lucky. My favorite spot was the one place it didn't think to look. The carving under my name, it wasn't a score. It was a label, a leftover. And I suddenly had the sickening feeling that the game wasn't over. It was just waiting for a new seeker to start the count. I was 17 the first time I house sat for the Abbotts. They were wealthy clients of my dad's, and their house was one of those sprawling, modern mansions that felt more like a corporate retreat than a home. The job was a teenager's dream. A huge TV, a stocked fridge, and a ridiculous amount of money for just sitting on a couch for 2 days. There was just one strange condition. The power grid out here is a little unreliable, Mr. Abbott had told me, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. If the power goes out, just stay in the living room. Don't go wandering. It'll come back on. The first night was uneventful, but the second night, right around 11 p.m., the house went black, a total, sudden power outage. The silence was immediate and absolute. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. I remembered Mr. Abbott's rule. It was weird, but I figured it was a safety thing. Maybe the backup generator was faulty. I fumbled for my phone and turned on its flashlight, its beam cutting a weak path through the cavernous living room. I was sitting on the huge leather couch, scrolling through my phone, when a soft tapping came from the massive, floor-to-ceiling window behind me. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. My blood turned to ice. It was a second-story window. There was no balcony. I slowly stood up and turned, my phone's light shaking in my hand. There was nothing there, just my own pale, terrified reflection and the black, empty night behind it. It had to be a branch, the wind. Then a knock on the front door, loud, confident. Bang, bang, bang. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Who would be out here in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a blackout? The knocking stopped. I waited. The handle on the front door, a heavy, modern silver lever, slowly began to turn down. I scrambled back, hiding behind the couch, my phone clutched to my chest. I heard the lock click. The door creaked open. Footsteps, slow and measured, entered the marble foyer. "Hello," a man's voice called out, friendly and disarming. "Is anyone home? My car broke down. I just saw your lights go out. Thought I'd see if you were okay." I didn't say anything. He was lying. There were no lights. The footsteps moved from the foyer into the living room. "It's a shame about the power," the voice continued, closer now. "It can be so boring, can't it? I know a game we can play to pass the time." He could see his silhouette now, a tall, nondescript shape against the faint moonlight from the windows. "It's my favorite game," he said, his voice taking on a sing-song, childlike quality. "It's called hide and seek, and I'm an excellent seeker. I'll count to 100, you hide, and if I find you, I win." This was insane. A complete stranger had walked into the house and was trying to play a game with me. I was about to scream when he said something that stopped the breath in my lungs. "Don't worry, Myra," he said. "I'll be fair. I'll even give you a head start." He knew my name. 1, he began to count, his voice echoing in the silent house. I didn't have a choice. This wasn't a game, it was a hunt. I scrambled on all fours, staying low, and crept out of the living room and down a long, dark hallway. My mind was racing. Where do you hide in a house that isn't yours? 23, 24, his voice drifted behind me. I found a small cleaning closet under the stairs. I slipped inside, pulling the door shut until it was just a crack, and sank down among the mops and bleach bottles, trying to silence my ragged breathing. 68, 69. I could hear him moving through the house. He wasn't rushing, he was methodical. I heard him open a downstairs closet. "Not in here," he'd sang. I heard him check the kitchen, the pantry. Each time his cheerful, sing-song voice announced my absence. It was a performance, a psychological torture. 99, 100, ready or not, here I come. The game had begun. I sat in that closet, my entire body trembling for what felt like a lifetime. I heard his footsteps on the stairs. He was going to the second floor. Good, he was getting further away. I stayed put, listening, my ears straining in the darkness. I heard him checking the bedrooms one by one. "Nope, not here either. You're a good hider, Myra." Then the footsteps stopped, directly above me. He was in the hallway on the second floor, right above my closet. The silence stretched, and then a sound that made my stomach drop. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the ceiling of my closet, from the underside of the stairs. He knew it. He had known the whole time. "I know you're in there, Myra," he whispered, his voice a low, chilling rasp right above my head. "The game's no fun if you don't move. I'll give you one last chance, a new hiding spot. I'll count to 20 this time." Before I could even process it, he started counting. 1, 2, 3. He was letting me go. He was toying with me. I burst out of the closet and ran, my bare feet slapping against the cold marble. Where could I go? The living room, the window. It was the only way out. 14, 15. I sprinted into the living room. The huge floor-to-ceiling windows were a wall of unrelenting blackness. I ran to the sliding glass door that led to the patio, fumbling with the lock. It wouldn't budge. 19, 20, ready or not? His voice boomed from the top of the stairs. I gave up on the door and looked for something to break the glass. And then I saw it, my own reflection in the huge window. And in the reflection, standing right behind me, was the silhouette of the man. He hadn't been upstairs. He had been in the living room the whole time, hidden in the deep shadows by the fireplace, watching me run. I spun around with a scream. The living room was empty. My phone, which I had dropped on the couch, suddenly lit up. A new text message from the Abbotts. "Did you have a visitor?" it read. Before I could reply, another text came through. "Don't worry, he's part of the security system. It's a new prototype, an interactive deterrent. Just play the game. He loses interest if you're a good sport. Congratulations, you've survived the beta test." I stared at the phone, then at the empty room, my mind unable to comprehend it. A security system? A game? The entire night? The terror? The feeling of being hunted? It was a test? I started to laugh, a hysterical, choking sound. The power in the house flickered back on, flooding the room with a bright, sterile, unforgiving light. The house was exactly as I had found it. Clean, empty, safe. But I knew it wasn't, because I got one last text from an unknown number. "You're a very good hider, Myra. Let's play again soon." When my family moved into the old farmhouse in rural Vermont, it was supposed to be a new beginning, a sanctuary from the noise and chaos of the city. The previous owners, an elderly couple, had left a lot behind: old furniture, dusty books, and a strange handwritten note tucked inside a kitchen drawer. My mom thought it was a charming piece of local history. It was a list of house rules. Most of them were mundane, notes about the well pump, the fuse box, but the second half of the page was different. "On the night of the first harvest moon of the year, the game will be played. This is not a choice. This is the duty of the one who keeps the house." The rules were specific and terrifying. When the moon is at its highest point in the night, the seeker will wake and begin its count. The house is your hiding place. Do not leave its walls under any circumstance. The seeker is blind, but it can hear your breath and feel your warmth. It is drawn to the light. Stay silent, stay cold, stay in the dark. The game ends at the first light of dawn. If you are found before then, you become the new seeker for the next house that is left empty. Do not try to hide in the attic. The attic is its room. You will not be safe there. We laughed about it, a classic spooky prank for the new owners. We framed the note and hung it in the kitchen as a conversation piece. We forgot all about it until the night of the first harvest moon, a year later. My parents were on a rare weekend trip. It was just me, a 16-year-old home alone. A storm was raging outside, but inside, the old house was quiet. I was watching a movie, when a profound, unnatural silence fell. The wind died, the rain stopped, the house held its breath. And then a voice, ancient and dry as bone dust, echoed through the house, seeming to come from the very walls themselves. 100, it said. The blood in my veins turned to ice. It wasn't counting down, it was starting at the end. I vaulted off the couch and ran to the kitchen, my hands shaking as I tore the framed note from the wall. The game will be played. 9B9, 9D8, the voice continued, slow, patient, relentless. This was real. I clicked off the lamp. Rule 2, no sound, no light. I had to hide. But where? Not my bedroom, too obvious. The basement felt like a tomb. 71, 70. I crept through the house, which was now illuminated only by the cold white light of the full moon. Every floorboard I stepped on seemed to scream my location into the silence. 42, 41. I remembered a small, forgotten pantry under the main staircase, hidden behind a heavy tapestry. I slipped behind the dusty fabric into the small, cramped space, pulling the door shut until it was just a hair's breadth from latching. I sank to the floor, wrapping my arms around my knees, trying to make myself smaller, colder. 10, 9, 8. The counting became a slow, deliberate tolling, each number a nail in my coffin. 3, 2, 1, ready or not. The game had begun. A silence so profound it was a physical pressure fell over the house. Then I heard the front door, which I knew was locked and deadbolted, slowly creak open. I heard it enter. It didn't have footsteps. It was a light, dry, skittering sound, like 1,000 dead leaves being blown across a wooden floor. It moved through the downstairs rooms, pausing, listening. I held my breath until my lungs felt like they would burst, my heart a frantic, trapped bird against my ribs. The skittering stopped. It was in the hall, right outside my pantry door. I could feel its presence, a tangible cold that seeped through the thin wood, sucking the warmth from my tiny space. I squeezed my eyes shut, imagining a blank, featureless face, listening for the sound of my life. After an eternity, that was probably only 30 seconds, the sound started again, moving towards the stairs. It was going to the second floor. I stayed in that pantry for hours, listening to the thing explore the rooms above me. The sounds were a unique torture. The scrape of something being dragged across my bedroom floor. A soft, inquisitive tap on my bathroom mirror. Then, the slow, groaning pull of the rope for the attic ladder. It was going to its room. Rule 4. This was my only chance. It was upstairs and it was distracted. I had to get out of the house. I pushed open the pantry door and crept on silent feet through the moonlit living room. The front door was still wide open, a dark, gaping mouth that promised freedom. I was 10 feet away from it when a sound from upstairs froze me in place. The attic ladder slammed shut with a deafening crack. It knew. The skittering started again, impossibly fast, a frantic insect-like scrabbling from the top of the stairs. It was coming down. I didn't have time. I dove behind the big, overstuffed floral couch in the living room, pressing myself flat against the cold, dusty floor, my chin in the dirt. I could see the bottom of the staircase, and I saw it descend. It wasn't a monster of myth. It was far worse. It was a shape, a tall, gaunt figure made of shifting shadows, dust, and something that looked like peeled strips of old yellowed wallpaper. Its limbs were long and jointed like a spider's. Its face was a featureless void, a black hole of nothingness in the moonlight, but I could feel it looking, searching. It reached the bottom of the stairs and stood perfectly still. It turned its blank face towards the front door, then towards the kitchen. Then its attention settled on the living room. It took a slow, deliberate, skittering step in my direction. My heart was a thunderous drum, a sound I was sure it could hear, a beacon calling to me. It took another step. Then, from outside, a sound that was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. The first tentative chirp of a robin, greeting the dawn. The figure stopped. It turned its void-like face towards the large window where the first pale gray light of sunrise was beginning to touch the glass. It let out a low, mournful, rattling sigh, like the last breath leaving a dying man. And then it just dissolved. It crumbled into a cloud of swirling dust motes and shadows that were swept away by an invisible breeze. I lay on that floor until the sun was fully in the sky, flooding the room with a warm, life-giving, beautiful light. The game was over. I had survived. I never told my parents the full story. How could I? We sold the house a month later. As I was packing my last box, I found the old note. With a shaking hand, I wrote a single sentence at the bottom, just below the rules. The couch. Hide behind the couch. It was the only kindness I could offer to the next person who would have to play.
Hey friends, thanks for listening. Click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. If you got a story, be sure to submit them over at the comments section, and maybe even hear your story featured on the next video. Thanks so much, friends, and I'll see you again soon. Good night.